to our very first masterclass. It's super exciting to have you here. The topic of today's conversation is fundamentals of recruitment data analytics. This is a topic that we have received a lot of questions from our customers. A lot of customers understand the value and the need to base a lot of conversations around data and specifically around recruitment data. And the question often comes is, what should I be looking at? What shouldn't I be looking at? And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to create a masterclass to show you the fundamentals of recruitment data analytics and tools that you can use in order to create any analysis by yourself without needing Dream Team's support, but having your own dependence using the Dream Team platform. Dream Team was founded specifically to answer this goal. We realized that understanding data and manipulating data can be quite difficult, specifically when it comes to the current ATS tools. And so we set out to making data available and an integral part of a lot of the recruitment conversations. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to split the session into two. So the first is going to be, like I said, the fundamentals of recruitment data analytics. And the second is going to be a Q&A. So these are answering questions that you've already submitted when you registered, or questions that you may have as I start presenting. So if anything that I say like shines a light bulb and you realize that you have a question, throw it into the Q&A section and I will get to it at the end. Let me start by sharing my screen. Okay, so like I said, fundamentals of recruitment data analytics is the topic for today. We broke down the stages into 4 fundamental stages. And with all 4 of these, you can effectively conduct any data analytics, specifically for the recruitment team, and not need to worry specifically, am I looking at the right thing? Am I looking at the wrong thing? You may not need all of these stages in every single analysis, but all of these can provide you with the tools that you need. So I'm going to start by briefly going over each one of these stages, explaining them on a relatively high level. And then I want to dive into it further with a real life example through Dream Team itself. So the very first stage, the very first thing that you need to do is define the focus, define what you're interested in looking at. So let's say, for example, you have a meeting with a hiring manager and you want to look at one specific job. That's already enough of a focus. You know that you're speaking, you know your target audience, so you know who you are planning on speaking to, you know the topic, and the topic is high level, or the topic can be specifically what's happening with that job. Once you've understood the high level goals, you go into the second stage. And this is how to start identifying areas of interest. This is often where most people get stuck because they don't know where to start, right? We often get questions being on the cases of, what should I look at? What are other companies looking at? And what do you recommend? And we can argue that that's not actually the right way to phrase the question. The question is what should my team be looking at? Every single company needs their own types of information. Some company may be thriving in one area and some may be struggling in another area. So it doesn't always help to see what other customers are doing. It really helps to understand exactly, to identify where you need to put more focus and effort in. And so what we're going to do is help you along the process of identifying the specific areas of focus. So what would that be? That would be trends and changes, right? A trend can be something like if your hiring time is starting to increase month over month as time goes on, that's a trend. And you want to start understanding why that is the case, right? Why is our time to hire increasing? A change may be something that's more drastic. So your time to hire is stable and suddenly you see, so it's stable, let's say at 30 days, and suddenly you see 1 month, it's shot up to 70 days. The question now becomes, why is that the case? And once you've identified those areas of focus where something doesn't seem right or something is incredible, right? We are increasing our numbers of hires or our time to hire, and we're not really sure why that is. Let's dive further into that and then double down. So once we've identified the trends and the changes, that brings us to our third step, which is explain, right? Explain is the why behind it. We can identify that our time to hire is increasing, but we're not sure yet as to why the time to hire is increasing. And so that's what we want to do in this stage, is why, and we'll dive deeper into it, get more nuanced understanding. So let's say instead of time to hire, we can look at time duration. How long does it take from step A to step B, from step B to step C? And then we can start identifying certain things. So let's say every single step takes us 3 days on average, but one step takes us 30 days. Well, that's the reason why the time is increasing. We must have a bottleneck at this situation. And once we've identified the why, we can then come with a solution. Maybe the solution is train more interviewers for that specific stage. Not really sure the specific reasons behind it, but that once you find the why behind it, you can then find the solution, the next steps, the way to double down on something positive or take a step back and reevaluate things if it's negatively affecting your hiring process. Finally, at the end, we have tell. And this is the storyline. This is arguably one of the most important aspects. You can tell a story without data. You can't have data without a story. The data is supposed to be there to help you cement your storyline, to help sell a point, and help direct a conversation. And so you need to make sure that all the data that you're providing aligns with the story that you are trying to say. You don't, if you're looking at time to hire, which is the example that we've been looking at now, you don't want to start throwing in data about the source of your hires, because it's not connected. It has nothing to do with the current story. It may confuse your target audience. It may detract from the main message, which is we have a bottleneck. And it may just take up valuable time in a limited time meeting where you can talk about next steps, solutions, and what you can do to further your hiring goals. So these are the 4 fundamental steps that you need. I want to show you what that looks like in DreamTeam itself. And we're going to go through a use case that is, let's say, looking back at Q4 on our engineering team. We have a feeling that it didn't go as well as we expected to. And what we want to do is have a meeting and understand why that is the case, where we can improve. So the first step is defining, and that definition is Q4 2021, specifically engineering, and look for the issues. So I'm going to go into DreamTeam itself. This is our homepage. I'm not going to spend too much time going over the different features that we have, mainly because I'm going to be explaining a lot of them as the conversation goes on. But if anything comes up that you have a question, well, you can always ask in the Q&A, or you can reach out to sales at dreamteam.app, and we can provide you with a demo and walk you through the platform fully. I am going to talk about our homepage though, because it is relatively new and I think it is super pretty. At the top, you have our templates. These are templates that we have built along with customers hand in hand to look at different areas of focus. So let's say monthly overview, you can click into preview, you can see all of your data live, and you can click on use template, and all of these insights can automatically be created. You can click on see all and see all of the different ones that we have. We have a lot of them coming up on a weekly, monthly basis. So keep an eye on that. And if you have suggestions for templates that you see yourself using a lot and you don't see here, let us know. This platform was effectively built hand in hand with our customers. And so we really value that feedback. So keep them coming. Over here, you can see the subscribed views. The subscribed views are dashboards and jobs that are of interest to you. And so you can subscribe to the certain things that are relevant to you, so you don't get overwhelmed by the clutter that you may see over here. This is effectively our homepage. We have also added the apps, which shows quite a few different beta features that we have. If any of them are of interest, again, our sales team or reach out to support@dreamteam.app, and we'll be more than happy to walk you through, test them out with us, give us feedback. I feel like I can't drive this point enough. We love the feedback. Okay, so that's a little bit about the homepage. I want to get started with the use case that we're talking about, and that is our engineering Q4 2021. Now, there's two ways I can get started, right? I can create a new dashboard from scratch and just call this Q4 2021 engineering, right? Or I can use an already made template as a foundation and simply remove anything that's not relevant to me. Because of efficiency and because templates often provide ideas into insights that you wouldn't look at before, I'm going to go with the top level KPI. I'm going to click on use template, and now I'm going to manipulate it to be relevant to me specifically. So the first thing that I'm going to do is call this Q4 engineering 2021 review. I'm going to remove all of this. I'm going to update. I'm then going to ensure that all of the data is showing me specifically what I'm looking for, right? So first I'm going to filter, and I'm going to say, this is a dashboard level filter, by the way. So anything that is being filtered now can be, will affect all of the insights that you see over here. So I'm going to say the department is R&D, because that's what I'm going for. And I'm going to say that this, let me actually change this to R&D. So now we're seeing only information that has to do with the R&D team. And then what I'm going to do is go into the calendar, and I'm going to say, I want to see last quarter. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now, what I'm then going to do is, before I start removing things that are not relevant, I want to take us into the next stage. And the next stage is the identification, right? What should we be looking at? What is of interest and what isn't? Now, like I said before, there's no right answer to that, because every company has their own areas of focus that may be of interest. And so what we did was we broke it down into 3 fundamental areas that can impact your ultimate goal, which is hiring. The first is volume, right? The more candidates that you have, the more hires that you may find within all of the resumes or CVs. So how many interviews are you conducting? How many resumes are you receiving? The second is speed. We have seen a very strong correlation between how long it takes to hire and the reasons for withdrawals and things like that. And so the faster that you are, the less chances that your candidate will receive another offer, that they'll get cold feet, that they'll get a promotion at their current company and therefore stay there. And the third is quality. We can have thousands of CVs. We can do our entire hire process within 4 days. But if the candidates aren't of quality, you're not going to find the hires that you're looking for, right? And that goes the same with all of these. All of them play a role on each other, but it may be that your biggest issue is volume. You're not getting enough applications or whatever it is, and speed and quality are okay. So they all need to work with each other and be balanced. So with that in mind, the fact that we're looking for these 3 things, we're going to start looking at our general overview and look for high-level trends. So we're looking for volume, we're looking for speed, and we're looking for quality. We're looking for high-level indicators for all of those, so we can see which one we need to dive further into. So back to Dream Team. We have a number of hires. This doesn't really relate to any of the 3, but it's the combination of the 3, right? Once all of those are at its peak, we'll get more hires. So I'm going to keep this here because it's our North Star, and it gives us a very clear picture saying we actually have a 20% decrease compared to the last quarter. We have time to hire, which is obviously the main KPI, the main insight that we have for the speed. We have application ratio, which can show us quality. How many CVs do we need to receive in order to hire someone, or what percentage of them? So I'm going to keep this for now. Time to fill doesn't really interest me, how long it takes to close a position. So I'm going to actually remove that. Time to onboard, again, it's too detailed. I'm not interested. Time to onboard, not interested. Time to offer, also not interested, but I see offer acceptance rate, and this also has to do with quality, and this is very interesting, right? How many offers that we have sent out are accepted, and these are candidates that we want to hire them, we want to invest our time and money and effort into them. How many of them accepted our offer? And we see a very serious decrease here also. So just looking at this, we have speed, we have quality. We don't really have volume, right? So what I would want to do is click on Add Insight. This is our insight store where you can see all of the different types of insights that we have, and we broke them down by the different categories. So I want to see applications. Now, as you can see here, we also broke down the different insights into those subcategories that I spoke about. So volume, speed, and quality. So we have volume, quality, and speed. And I'm interested in seeing volume, like we discussed. I'm going to say number of applications over time, and I'm going to add that to my dashboard. Now let's go through the rest of these and see what is of interest. Number of hires by period. I'm not going to look for any insights. I'm just seeing what's interesting. So we have number of hires, period over period. I'm going to keep that. Number of onboards, period over period. We discussed that I'm not interested in onboards, so I'm going to delete that for now. Number of hires by department. Because we're only looking at one department, I'm actually going to delete that. And then this is the same thing here. So offer acceptance rate by department, we already have that information here. So there's no real added value. I'm going to remove that. We have number of hires by job. Now, the R&D department has been broken down into 2 jobs. This may actually land up providing some value. So I'm going to keep that for now, but I'm not really sure yet. Now we have a number of applications by period. So now we have that volume, we have that speed, and we have the volume, speed, and quality. So now what we need to do, right, is we've understood, we've mapped everything, and now we need to see what is of interest. The truth is that speed is definitely of interest. Why have we increased our hiring time from 22 days to 36? So that could be the first area that we can focus on. The second is quality. Why are only 60% of our applicants accepting our offer when last quarter we were at nearly 80%? And then the last thing that I see over here is we see a real decline in number of applications, right? We see from October 17th, as an example, we see 95 CVs, whereas in the lowest is November 21st, which is only 52, right? So why do we have that much of a decline? Now I'm going to dive into each one of them, and we're going to see what is of interest. Now, if it's not of interest, I'm not going to delete it yet because we're not at the storytelling stage, but what we are at the explain stage. Why is this happening? And so let's dive into that. Let's start with number of applications. We see a decrease. We don't know why we see a decrease. And the truth is this is very high level. CVs can come from multiple different areas, right? So we don't know where we should be looking. So let's break this down further. So I'm going to go and add insight, and I'm going to go to applications. And I want to break down the different types of applications because we know that can come from agencies and they can come from referrals and third-party boards. So I'm going to say number of applicants over time by source category. So let's see if there's a specific one of them that are providing us interesting trends. Okay, so now we can start comparing this to this. And let's see if anything stands out to us and anything says, I wonder why that is. Looking at this, the first thing that I'm actually seeing is the dark blue, and that's quite sporadic. We see a big decrease here, but then a big increase here. So that could be interesting to see. And we also have agencies, right? If we look at October 17th again, we see 67 CVs coming from agencies. But if we look here in November, we see 37. So we see a real decrease there also. So I want to look into those two further. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply an insight level filter. And what it's going to do is remove anything that I'm not interested in, but only for this insight. So while this filter filtered for the entire dashboard, I'm only interested in filtering for this dashboard. So I'm interested in filtering for agencies and third-party boards. So I'm going to add a filter, and I'm going to search for source category. I'm going to say the source category is agency, and the source category is what did we say before? Third-party boards. So let's say agencies and third-party boards. Okay. So what we do see is this confirms the sporadicness of the third-party boards. And you know what? It's not actually stable. I can't get anything confident out of that. So I'm actually going to remove it and dive even further and say I'm only interested at looking at CVs coming from agencies. And what we see is actually quite a significant decline, right? We're seeing from October 3rd all the way to December 26th, we see basically a 50% decline in CVs. With this knowledge, we can say, okay, must be that we're receiving less CVs, meaning we're having less quality hires, and therefore we're hiring less people. That's a perfectly logical explanation, but we need to confirm that, right? So we need to dive even further in. And what I want to see at this point is, what is the quality of these candidates? So I'm going to add an insight. And I'm going to look for quality. I'm going to go to hires. Now, at this point, if you don't actually know where to look for this specific insight, but you know what you want to see, you can always search for it. So I know that I want to see a ratio. I want to see what percentage of applications that came from agencies were actually hired. So I'm going to look for ratio, and you can see all of the ratio options come up here. And I'm going to say application to hire ratio by source category. And I'm going to add that in. And this is one way to look at it. Actually, I'm not going to do that yet. The other way that I can look at it is I can see how many CVs it takes in order to hire one person, right? So we can, let's say I'm not sure where it could be. We can start looking at hire because we want to see it. I can say number of applications per hire. So we found the area and it's by source category. So I'm going to add it. And what am I looking at here? I'm looking at, it'll take me 212, it means I need to receive 212 CVs or resumes in order to hire one candidate if they come from agencies. And if I look at it the other way around, I can say what percentage of applications that come from agencies get hired. I see 0.5%. And this is compared to referral, which is 7.7%, or 13 hires. I just want to give a quick disclaimer. All of this data is fake. So I'm not actually advocating for or against any types of things. It's just important to say. Okay, so this can be quite interesting, right? It means that there may be a significant decrease within our applications from agencies, but I don't know how significant that impact actually is. At this point, I'm going to go so far as to say it's not impactful, and I'm probably not going to show it in my presentation to the C-level executives, but I'm going to keep it because I'm not working on my storytelling yet. I'm just working on my overall analysis. Okay, so we hit a dead end here. probably not the reason. We can look at other types of CVs. So let's look at, we can look at referrals, but due to time constraints, I want to dive into another area. And this is offer acceptance rate. It's quite low. It's quite interesting. What effectively we see here is we see quite a bit of withdrawals in the offer stage. And the question is obviously why? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an insight, and I'm going to go with withdrawals. And I can just go straight to reasons for withdrawal. But I want to take it a step further because it's one of my favorite insights. And I'm going to look at number of withdrawals by reason, so the reason that they're withdrawing, by application step and stage. Meaning I can look at only the offer stage and say, why are they withdrawing at that very stage? I can also learn other things along the way, but the point is that I can see the specific reason for withdrawal at the specific stage. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to my dashboard. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Okay. Okay, and now let's start looking at the specific reasons behind it. So we see in the phone screening, the main reason is not interested in position. That's arguably a good thing, right? The quicker we find out that the candidate isn't interested, the less time we are spending conducting interviews and that ultimately aren't going to lead anywhere. So that could be a good thing. Found a job at another company in the first technical interview, not the best, because the question is how did they already find another job when we're only in the first interview? Not interested in the position. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but what we're trying to do is find a relationship between the reason for withdrawal and the stage at which they withdrawals. If someone says that they're not interested in the position in the leadership interview, there may be an issue, right? Why did it get all the way to the leadership interview before they realized that they weren't interested? The best case scenario is we have all of that in the phone screening where we explain the job fully. Again, we're talking about one over here in the entire quarter. So I wouldn't really take it seriously. Things fall through the cracks all of the time. It's not the end of the world. But what's really interesting is if we look at the reasons for them rejecting the offer in the offer stage. And we see one, staying at the current company, which makes sense. People get cold feet, people get raises, promotions, counter offers. It makes sense. But we see 7 of them, so 7 out of 8, accepted another offer. For me, this would be the first red flag that I would see, something that says, this is great, we now have an action item. And what's that action item? Well, this actually happened, similar situation happened to our customer. And what they saw in this situation was that what they decided was they do not want to have a single situation where a candidate receives a CV from another company. They want to have the quickest hiring process that they can to ensure that no other CV is on the table. And that's their ultimate goal for the entire quarter. They are trying to get the hiring time down from 45 days all the way down to between 7 to 14 by the end of the year. And they are working extremely hard on doing this. And that can be the first lesson that we learn here, is we are taking too long and they're accepting another offer. And the truth is that also aligns with our time to hire. We've seen an increase in the amount of time it's taken to hire, and we see a decrease in the offer acceptance rate. And so it may be that the two are actually highly related with each other. So that could be an interesting thing to look at. The other thing that this reminds me of, so at this point we have something of interest, but the other thing that it makes me think of is we're gaining really valuable insights over here from withdrawals. I wonder what the situation is regarding rejections. So I'm going to go high level. And I want to see activity, right? So what actually happened by each stage over the last quarter, and I want to see a deeper look into that. Okay, so what do we see? We see the vast majority of the withdrawals happened in the phone screening stage, which isn't the end of the world, like we said, saves us time, and the offer stage, which means not a lot of people are withdrawing as this time goes on. But we do see quite a significant amount of rejections in the first technical interview, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's the first time they're actually being checked. But the question that I have is, are we doing something wrong or right there, right? Are we rejecting them for the right reasons? So the first thing that we would want to do is have a very similar insight to this and say, why are we actually rejecting them, right? So I'm going to click on Add Insight, and I'm going to go to Reject, and I'm going to say Rejection Reasons by Application Step. I'm going to add that. And what we see here immediately is lack of experience, lack of experience, lack of experience. My first message would actually be, we need to improve our rejection reasons, right? We can only take lessons and we can only do a data analysis on data that we have. And if everyone is being rejected for the same reason, we're not really learning. We have quite a few different types of reasons for rejection, but it looks like none of them are being used. And so an action item here, this isn't actually a bad thing, right? Because the action item wouldn't be, okay, let's just throw this away, we can't gain anything. But the action item would be, we need to speak to the rest of the recruitment team and make sure that everyone is giving accurate reasons for rejections. We're running out of time. And so I want to take it into the fourth section, which is the storytelling, right? Up until now, we defined our goal, which was Q4 R&D 2021 review. We looked into the different areas of focus, and we found potential issues in speed, in quality, and in volume. We dived further into the reasons behind the volume, and we didn't find anything too significant. We saw something significant within quality, and we didn't yet have the time to do speed, but I do recommend doing that yourself. We could look at step duration, how long it takes in each step, things like that. And now what we want to do is we want to create one succinct story, one story that will take up, let's say we have a 45-minute with the leadership team. We want the data, the presentation side of it to be 20 minutes, not more than that. And the rest of the time to be talking about next steps and what we can do to improve and what we did really well. And so we need to make sure that none of the information that we're giving is distracting our target audience, is detracting from the main story, or is confusing them. So let's go through each thing and make sure that everything that we're showing is actually relevant and looks visually appealing. Number of hires is obviously really important because that's our overall goal. And this shows that we didn't manage to meet our goal, and we want to discuss that. Time to hire. Let's say for argument's sake, we had the time to go further into time to hire, we would keep that. Application to hire ratio, while it's important, it's not part of our story at all. And so I'm actually going to go ahead and delete that. We have offer acceptance rate, that is part of our story. So I'm going to keep that. Number of hires, I'm not sure how relevant it actually is, but it may help us cement that story, right? So look at the amount of CVs look at the amount of hires that we have. It's not a lot, but actually what we can do is change the dates. Let's compare it from last quarter to this quarter to show that decline, right? So I'm going to use the custom date. I'm going to go all the way back to July. I'm going to go to December. I'm going to save. And now we see a clear story, right? Look at us. We were thriving in August, September, even October, and then we fell, right? And so this shows, this cements the issue, the reason that we're having this conversation. So I'm actually going to make it a little smaller because it's not our main story. And what I'm going to do is, let's make it smaller, and I'm going to move it to the top. Let's move it next to it, next to our time to hire. Okay. Number of hires by job. Again, it's interesting. We can definitely have a full conversation about the differences between full stack and back end. But I'm not actually, again, it's going to detract, so I'm going to remove it. We have a number of applications by period. This entire insight, all of this is one story, right? We saw a decrease in applications. We saw it significantly affected our, it came from our applications, but we're not seeing a huge impact because agencies don't bring in a lot of quality CVs. And you can see it by these two data points. That's our story. We want to make sure that it's succinct and it doesn't take up too much space. So let's put them next to each other. And so we can start comparing the two hand in hand. And let's do the same thing for applicant to hire ratio and number of applicants to hire. Now, let's do that there, that, and then I'm going to move that there. Okay. Now, it's obviously very important to go into each insight individually, right, and look at it, because in this specific insight, if you're just looking at it straight, you're not sure what you're looking at. Here, lower is much worse, but in this insight, lower is much better. So it really depends on what you're looking at, and you need to make sure that you're explaining all of this to your target audience. Okay. So we have a very clear story being told at this point. Let's see, number of withdrawals is also very interesting. This is the main lesson that we have right now. Let's keep it with a full length, but let's make both of them smaller. What I'm actually going to do is take this on the top, right? And I'm going to say, so we've explained the application issue, and now we're explaining the withdrawals and rejections. And I'm going to say, okay, these are the two insights that we found. First, we looked into the rejection, and then we looked into offer. What we found with, then we looked into withdrawals. What did we find with withdrawals? Well, we found the issue with offer, et cetera, what we recommend. And then we looked into rejection reasons, but we had an issue. And that issue was A, B, and C, and this is what we recommend. And so, as you can see, we made sure that we wanted to show only the data that aligns with the full story. There's not a fortune of insights. We don't need to show off by showing 1,000 different data points. We need to show only the information that's relevant to the specific story. Now, you can always use DreamTeam in your presentation itself. You don't need to take screenshots. You can share it or you can open it up. And if the conversation needs to become more granular, you can always dive into something specific and find the specific person or more interesting about more information about each one. That's pretty much it for our presentation today. We're getting into our Q&A time, but I just want to go over everything that we did again. We defined, right? We said, what is our goal? We understood exactly what it was. We then went into identification stage and we broke it down into 3 areas. We had speed, we had quality, and we had volume. Once we identified the areas of interest from those 3, we delved further into it and we explained the reasons behind them all. And then we built it into one succinct story that doesn't overwhelm and confuse our target audience. I genuinely hope you found this interesting. If you have ideas for future masterclasses, please let us know. We'd be more than happy to conduct them. Let us know if you found this helpful or not, too complex or too simple. We really would love to hear that feedback. I'm going to jump into Q&A for now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen unless it's important. Okay, so the first question that we have, feel free to start sending them in if you have any other questions, is will the webinar recording be shared with the attendees afterwards? It definitely can be. Feel free to message us and we can send it to you. We already have quite a few requests from a few other people who weren't able to make it, so we will send it out to whoever wanted it is being recorded. Okay, what other questions do we have here? what is the difference between stages and steps? Okay, so that's a great question. Let me share my screen again and show you exactly the difference. Okay, I hope you can see my screen again. Okay, so the difference between stages and steps. Steps can be a combination. Steps can be individual steps, right? So where stages are a combination of steps. So what does that mean? Let's say you have one stage, which is professional interviews. In that professional interview, you may have 4 or 5 different professional interviews, which is each individual step. If you look at an individual job, then what we'll show you is all of the steps. But if you're looking at multiple jobs, we're going to show you stages. And the reason for that is if we show you individual steps, there may be some conflicting information that isn't relevant to one job. So let's say only in the backend engineer, do we have a meeting with hiring manager? Well, it may look weird if we show that along with the full stack that doesn't have that requirement. So what we do is we look at the stage if you are looking at multiple jobs, and we look at the steps if you're looking at one job only. Okay, so I hope that answered the question. I can show you specifically. Let's look at the step conversion funnel. Okay, as you can see, we're seeing this by stage because we're looking at a department, which is 2 jobs. But if I were to go to job and I were to go to backend engineer and go ahead and save that, you can see we're seeing it by step, and we're seeing much more technical, much more nuanced levels. Obviously, I can always remove something. So I can say, I don't want to see, let's say like go, no go, right? I don't want to see go, no go. Go ahead and remove that. And as you can see, it's out of the picture. So even when we're looking at the more granular insight, even when you look at more granular insight, you can pick and choose what's actually interesting for you or not. Again, the goal for DreamTeam is to be as customizable as possible. And so that's how we allowed you to do that. You can also specifically for the step conversion funnel, and it's coming to other insights soon, is you can pick, right? You can say, I'm looking at multiple jobs. So you see, what did I remove here? Okay, yeah. So I'm looking at multiple jobs, but I still want to see it by step, right? And what we can do is ensure that we're still looking at step, even though we're looking at multiple jobs. And that's going to come to a lot of the other features soon, but it's relatively new, so I wanted to show that off. We have another question here saying, how did we get the reason for withdrawal? They use lever. Is that the archive reason? That is, you can pick the specific reasons for withdrawal yourself. So yes, it is the archive reason. My understanding is lever specifically, you can customize it, but lever, you can add the different reasons, but lever doesn't differentiate between withdrawal and reject. And so we manipulated that data. If you want to speak to us specifically about it, reach out to us. And we can make sure that your reasons for withdrawals are actually being looked at as withdrawals, and rejections are actually being looked at rejection. That's a great question. Thanks for asking that. Okay. What other questions do we have? Can you share a dashboard externally? For sure. This is one of my more favorite features. We have share at the top here. If you click on share, what this can do is open up a link that you can share with anyone externally. All right, so what I can do is copy this link and I can see it anywhere else. But what we can also do is, I just want to show you quickly what this will actually look like. And as you can see, they can see all of the information, right? But they can't click into anything. You can always switch it off and the link will die, right? So if I refresh, they won't be able to see it anymore. But this information is actually shared live, right? So as the information gets updated, so too will that link. And therefore you don't need to resend it to, let's say you want to share it with a hiring manager. You don't need to send it every single week, month, day, whatever it is. They can just add it as a bookmark it and look at it whenever they want. Now, if you want to share more information, you can open this, and this allows them to view more granular detail. So I'm going to copy the link again. And what this means is let's say this is of interest, right? Or I'm interested in the application review. I can click into it now and see the specific people's name, the job, the R&D department, days in progress, application stage, whatever it is. But that wasn't available that when I had this turned off. So it's up to you with how much information you want to share with a hiring manager, C-levels, really, whoever it is. Hope that answered your question. If not, let me know in the Q&A. Can you show us the new beta features? For sure. I'm going to dive into them really quickly because we don't have that much time, and each one of them can be a discussion on its own. Again, if anything stands out and you are happy to be a beta tester, reach out to us and let us know. Okay, so I'm going to go through them each one. So we have interview scheduling. What this does is it shows you all of the different interviewers that you have. It shows you the amount of interviews that each one of them are conducting this week, next week, and the week after. And what it allows you to do is make sure that there isn't one interviewer that is being overwhelmed and someone else that is being completely underutilized, right? We don't want, this is especially important for like hiring managers or interviews where this isn't the full-time position, right? They're not recruiters. And the more time they're spending on interviews, the less time they are on doing what they were hired for. So you want to make sure that you're balancing it out. You can always search by a specific area, right? So back-end engineer, and we're specifically looking at the second technical interview. Well, these 10 people are responsible for it. Let's dive into it. You can obviously deactivate a user, an interviewer, sorry. And this allows you to make sure that no one person is overwhelmed or not. If I'm going too fast, just let me know. But I just want to make sure to show you all of them. Here we have my tasks. These are candidates that are currently within the hiring process. And you can start highlighting candidates that have been in the process for too long, candidates that you need to put more emphasis on, and things like that. Obviously, you can filter by anything, just like the rest of our platform. Here we have hiring goals. Hiring goals allows you to set goals, like in the name, for year, quarter, or month, right? So let's say my goal for the entire year is 4, right? I can see that I'm 75% there. But for quarterly, I can have a completely different goal. And so for quarterly, my goal can be 3. And I've actually achieved that, right? So that's awesome. So quarterly, I've achieved my goal. Yearly, I am very close to being there. This is the start of this feature. It obviously shows all of the jobs that are currently open. You can say, I only want to see the ones with goals, or you can say, I want to see everything. It is up to you. Here we have candidate experience. This is a new feature that we are busy rolling out. It allows you to send in a survey to a candidate after they have completed their hiring process, or were rejected, withdrawals for whatever reasons, and it's completely customizable, right? So you can pick what questions you want to ask. Right now, you'll need to reach out to us and tell us what questions you want to put in, but you can pick anything that you want. So we have questions of 1 to 5, and we'll give you a general score. We have free text. We have an NPS score. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with NPS, but effectively what it's doing is saying, based on your interview experience, how much would you recommend company X to a friend, right? if they say between 0 to 6, they're considered detractors. They're the ones that would probably write a negative review on Glassdoor, things like that. 7 to 8 are neutral, didn't love it, didn't hate it, no hard feelings. And 9 to 10 are loved the experience, fantastic. Even if I didn't get the job, you guys were incredible. And so those are considered your promoters. We take all of that data, we calculate into a score of negative 100 to positive 100. And effectively anything over 0 is considered positive. Your hiring process is going well. Anything over positive 30 is considered going really, really well. We have customers that this has become their North Star, right? They have this and actual numbers of hires. Everything else is important and it affects the NPS score, but this is the very thing that they're looking to improve. When they started, they were actually at negative 10. And they sent me a message recently that they're actually just got over 0. So they're quite excited about that. And so that could be very nice. And then you have some free text and things like that. Now we can also show you granular details because everything is customizable. You want more people to answer, right? But different things cause different, conversion. So the more free text that you ask, the more detailed and granular information that you have, but the more time it takes to fill out the survey. And usually that means the less percentage of people filling out the survey. So it's important to find that balance, right? How do I get the most amount of information without detracting too many candidates from giving their experience? You can see specifically which questions weren't answered. You can see the conversion funnel. And so this is a feature that we have. You can pick when you want to send it. So let's say you only want to send it to candidates that have gone through the first technical interview and you want to send it 3 weeks after the interview is completed. That is possible. Just let us know. And finally, we have DNI. And this is information that is pulled from Greenhouse, from your the candidate's application, if they fill in this information. And this can help you ensure that you are meeting those goals also. Okay, those are pretty much our features, our different features that we have that are on beta. Okay, let's see what other questions we have. Okay, I want to dive into a specific referral campaign. Is that possible? Yeah, absolutely, right? There's a few ways that you can do that. You can do it similar to what I did over here, right? Or you can go more granular, right? So let's say, for example, I want to see if my funnel looks different from a specific agency or specific, whatever it is, referrer to compare to other people, right? So I'm going to remove all of this. Just sync with the dashboard. And I'm going to say that the source category, let's say, is referral. And I want to see how this flows. And then I want to compare that to the rest of the company, right? So I'm going to go to these 3 dots over here. I'm going to duplicate. And I'm going to go back to the filters. But the difference now is I'm going to say the source category is not referral. And now what I can start doing is start seeing the different conversion, right? So immediately I'm seeing a 35% conversion from application review to the phone screen, whereas in the rest of the different types of insights is showing me a 13% conversion rate. So that is really low compared to this 35% over here. And we can do this with multiple different areas, right? We can I don't know, I'm trying to think what else could be interesting. We can see pass-through rates and also converted. So quickly about what pass-through rate is really showing is it's showing the same data as a funnel would, but it's showing more granular, right? So we're not seeing just the percentage that is passing, but we're also seeing the amount of percentages that aren't passing because of the different reasons. So maybe withdrawals or with rejected, and it gives us a more nuanced view into the specific reasons. And so you can then click into it further and get all of the candidates that withdrew at the specific stage. So you would do the same thing here. You would click on add filter. You would go source category is referral. You would save it. You would then duplicate. And you would do the same thing. So the source category is not referral. And now what I actually want to do is compare them hand in hand, right, next to each other instead of needing to scroll. Actually going to make sure, because right now I'm just confused, right? Which one is which? So this one is not referral. So I'm going to go ahead and change this name. So pass-through rate, not referral. And this one is pass-through rate. Let's make it very clear. Yes. Okay, great. And now we can start comparing the two and seeing if there's different types of percentages, different types of interest, of insight, and things like that. We have a last question here, and then I think we're going to start it off for today. And that's quickly going over the different types of filters. We have a dashboard level filter, which will affect the entire dashboard. Everything, every insight that we have over here will be affected by these dashboard level filters, including the timeline. And then we have insight level filters. And that is talking about only affecting a specific insight. And so this is the perfect example, right? This insight is only this insight is being affected by the source category is not referral. And only this insight is being affected by the source category is referral. But all of them are being affected by the filter that says the department is R&D. I hope you found this helpful. I hope you found this interesting. If you have any questions, reach out to us, support at DreamTeam.app. You can always reach out to sales at DreamTeam.app. And yeah, it was a pleasure passing this knowledge on. Have a great rest of your day and weekend.